just a few days ago, the prequel to the original Star Wars A New Hope has finished up, and let me tell you, it's awesome. Let me just tell you right out of the gate. Hi, my name is Nathan. I talk about a lot of movies and shows in this case on this channel. If you're new here, down below in the comment section, if you've seen Andor Season 2, tell me what you thought of it. I would love to hear all that down below in the comment section. And be sure to like this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. And I also have more content like this over on my channel where I do more reviews, rankings, and things like that. I know I've been a little bit low on content lately, but I'm trying to get that back up after studying for a bunch of AP tests. I took an AP World History exam last week, and so I didn't get a lot watched. I saw Thunderbolts, and I shot a full review of it, but I just couldn't edit it in time. But this is something I really wanted to talk about because I thought it was simply just fantastic, which already spoils my review here. So, you know what? Let's just do this in one take. Let's just go straight into this with the review. And I just need to say, I absolutely, thoroughly enjoyed Andor Season 2. And it is easily, Andor, just the show in general, Season 1 and Season 2, just easily the best thing that Disney Star Wars has generated. Ever since Disney acquired the rights to Star Wars, I just haven't been excited for anything that they've put out. I thought The Force Awakens was fun, and I did not like the sequels that followed after that, and I've liked Mandalorian Season 1 and 2, I didn't like Season 3, and I've pretty much not enjoyed anything else they put out. And when Andor first came out, I was like 10 years old, and so when it first came out, I watched it, and I didn't understand a single thing going on. It was so far detached from everything that I thought Star Wars was, and I thought Star Wars should be, and what I enjoyed about Star Wars, detached itself from that, did this totally different thing that's more mature, it's made for an older demographic. So at the time, I didn't really understand it. I respected it a lot more than I actually enjoyed the show. And then, as Season 2 came around, what I decided to do was having this new state of mind, being in high school, I decided to go back to the first season of Andor and watch it maybe in a different context. And in all real senses, it really was a first-time watch for me because it was a dramatically better show than I remembered back then, because I didn't really understand all that much going on. It was very dialogue-based. I wasn't sure how to process it. But now I see that it truly is a masterfully created TV series that is just on this whole different level than all of the other Star Wars shows, or even just all of the content on Disney+. Thus, I got more excited as Season 2 rolled around the corner, watched all the episodes of Season 2, and absolutely loved it. I would say that Season 2 maintains the same quality of Season 1. And that just the immaculate production is on scale, which they spent $625 million on this show. I don't know if that's overspending, because it's such a shame that this show is one of the lowest viewed Star Wars shows. This and Skeleton Crew are the lowest viewed live action Star Wars shows on Disney+. And I actually haven't even seen Skeleton Crew. I've heard it's good. Let me know down below in the comment section if I should watch it. But it's such a shame to me that Star Wars fans are not watching this show, because I feel that maybe they would enjoy it if they give it a try. Maybe it's because they called it Andor. Maybe it's because they're not really sure how to process a show about Cassian Andor. It's not really just about Cassian Andor even. It has an ensemble cast full of all these people, but they just decided to call it Andor. But anyways, moving on from that, just my review, just my thoughts right here after finishing the finale just like yesterday. I just thought that it was amazing. It was immaculate. If there's any word to describe this, the production value, it's insane. Where you get shows like Obi-Wan Kenobi that feel entirely cheap. You get a young Leia running around, able to outrun some adults, and also these adults like getting blocked by small little tree branches. Just insane quality jump from these two shows, and it just looks fantastic on that scale, and that's something I also praised about Season 1. But what this season does a little bit differently, I would say, in its storytelling, I'm going to try to not get into spoilers here. That's what I'm trying to avoid. I don't want to ruin the show for anybody who's watched it, because earlier today, I got Attack on Titan ruined for me. Please don't spoil that in the comments. But, alright, so what this season decides to do, basically, this is not a spoiler, but it's 12 episodes, and it splits it up in 3 episode little story arcs that have a 1-year time jump between all of these arcs. And so at the beginning of every 3 episodes, it'll say 1 year later, indicating 1 year time, and it bleeds right into Rogue One. And with the show doing that sort of thing, I wasn't sure how it was going to work, because the first season of Andor worked because it focused in on this small little time period and sort of the start of this rebellion. And so I wasn't really sure how it was going to work, although I was really excited for this. But it managed to have these arcs that still feel like a cohesive whole, and they still feel interesting, and they don't feel abrupt or rushed at all. When it jumps 1 year later, it doesn't feel like it's just coming out of nowhere or anything. It directly does follow up plot lines from the previous episode, so it feels like a cohesive show. And the 4 arcs that they chose, I think, are all very good. I enjoyed every single episode of this season, and what it still maintains from season 1, although having so many moving parts, and kind of, it's not necessarily fast-paced, but it certainly is covering a large span of time, it still maintains the consistent complexity in the writing and as well as the characters. So you get a moral complexity with the characters going on in their mind, like especially Luthen, played by Stellan Skarsgård, where he's a character that is doing horrible atrocities, thinking of the greatest outcomes for the rebellion. He has this great monologue back in season 1, and that very much describes his character here. And he does a bunch of these wild, crazy things that are generally against what the rebellion is fighting for, but is doing so for the greater good. He knows the outcome and is sort of planning all this, but horrible things have to be done in the process. And there's that moral complexity. It does that so well without deconstructing what came before, without cheapening anything that came before in the original trilogy. It just adds more, if anything, to that. And even some of the other characters, of course you get Andor. I also really like what they did with Dedra Meero in this season, and how they close out sort of her character, and we'll get to that in a little bit later, but I just love all the complexity that they give these characters, and it's just so unbelievably well done. And this is something I simply cannot believe that Disney Plus put this out, and they put out a bunch of other lackluster, horrible shows even, and they put this out. And what this season I think expands on with the first season is that this season has more tension as well as more action. So of course, the first season of Andor had a bunch of tension and not a bunch of action, but a whole bunch of tension in these operations, prison breaks, and sort of operations to break into Imperial bases, things like that in the first season. This one only improves upon that. There's a set of episodes 7 through 9, where there's this big, gigantic action sequence on Gorman, and it is done so unbelievably well. It brings so much tension, and it kind of also bleeds into Rogue One a little bit at the end, and that might be the best episode in the show. Season 2, Episode 8, that might be the best episode of the show. It adds more to the characters, it has action, it has tension, it has all of it, and that's just all spread throughout the entire season. Even the finale, it doesn't need to have, the final episode doesn't need to have a big gigantic action sequence like I was expecting, but it still provides so much tension, you care so much about the characters, that you don't need a big action sequence. It came up with something better in the finale that bleeds into Rogue One very, very nicely. It does such a good job at directly leading into Rogue One in a way that feels entirely satisfying. And I rewatched Rogue One right before filming this video, and I just thought that they just did such an unbelievably good job in Andor of going straight into Rogue One in a way that feels consistent, in a way that feels earned, and in a way that fits. And speaking of in a way that fits, I think a lot of the ways that they portray the characters and the way that they do their stories in this season absolutely pay off and work really well. In the case of Like I said, Dedra Moreau earlier, I really like what they did with her. The irony in the writing and all of it, I really like that. Even with side characters like Bix, I like what they did with her. The final shot is so gut-wrenching, but also makes sense for the Andor character, and it's just so unbelievably well done. I just, my mind is still blown thinking about this finale and how it leads into Rogue One, and it rouses such large emotions out of the audience. It's able to, like, even me sitting on my bed back there watching Andor, it feels so cinematic in nature. You cared about all the characters, all of the conflict, all of the little manipulations that took place in Season 1, Season 2, all of the operations, all of the action, and the tension, and all the spy stuff, all led to a finale that just rouses big, gigantic emotions. And it especially helps, I think, if you've watched Rogue One before this show, because if you know what happens in Rogue One, it becomes even more gut-wrenching. It enhances the experience, I would say, if you watch Rogue One first. You don't have to watch Rogue One to understand Andor. I would recommend watching Rogue One before Andor, but my gosh, it bleeds into Rogue One in such a nice way that rouses so much large emotions, and just the final little cherry on top that adds to this is a fantastic score, a fantastic main theme that's been running all throughout this entire show, that especially in the final episode, this score, this theme is able to rouse such large emotions as you feel sort of a sense of dread, of happiness, and ultimately of hopefulness. Something that Star Wars has always stood for. And it doesn't abandon that at all whatsoever. It just does something a little bit different, and it absolutely worked for me. Now, it might not be for all Star Wars fans. Let me just say that out of the way. This show is more mature. It is more slower paced. It's a lot more dialogue based. It doesn't have big gigantic action sequences, though I did mention earlier there are some big gigantic action sequences. But if you are a Star Wars fan, if you are interested in sort of the backstory of the rebellion from the original trilogy, I would 100% recommend Andor. And it's something new, it's something fresh, it's something different. It's not just traditional Star Wars. It does something entirely different, and it pays off really well. And since the show has low viewership compared to the other Star Wars shows, that's a shame. I highly recommend you guys watch Andor, especially if you like Star Wars. So, I just absolutely loved this season, and I loved this entire show from beginning to end. So this season, Andor Season 2 gets an A+, and I can't rave about it enough. I think it's the best show of the year that I've seen thus far. And even add in the movies that I've seen this year, add in the shows, this is the best thing that I've watched this year thus far. So, down below in the comment section, share what you thought of Andor over on my channel. I have more content like this over on my channel. Why do I keep repeating that? I have more content like this. Check those out right now. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end, and I will see you in the next one.